Hello, my name is Ann DeSantis. I'm the director for the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. I want to tell you what's been going on with us since we've been in existence in 2015. The Mercedarian friars came together and decided that they wanted to start a foundation to make outreach to families in crisis. And that's exactly what they did when the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation came into existence as a nonprofit 501c3 headquartered in Philadelphia. Since that time, I became the director in the beginning of 2018, and we basically have four facets to what we do. We offer prayer, priestly consultations, podcasts and videos, and also programs and events. Now, if you've never been to our website, just to invite you to go to nonatus.org and check out all the great things that we've been doing. Because since that time, since we've been in existence, we've now helped hundreds of families who are going through really challenging times. And as you all know, we went through a really challenging time in 2020. So I'd just like to invite you to go and check out the great things that we're doing. And there's more to come. If you or your church community would like us to come and do some type of an event where we can talk about what we offer in terms of that pastoral accompaniment and making outreach to families in crisis, please do reach out to us. And I'm just so grateful to be able to serve people like you and your families. So again, learn about us at nonatus.org. Thank you.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Ann DeSantis.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Radio. My name is Ann DeSantis. It's amazing and wonderful to be here with you on this evening because I have another great guest that I'm really excited about for you to get to know and learn about the great things that she's doing. Her name is Ann O'Keefe Rodgers, CFLE BA. I'm going to read you her bio so you can get to know her a little bit more. From Washington University, and that was where she earned her BA. In St. Louis, is a consultant at the Resolution Center in Jacksonville, Florida, and facilitates conferences, retreats, support groups, and network among targeted parents, and is facilitated by the power of post-trauma resilience. Ann is a certified family trauma resilience coach, a court mediator, and Spanish interpreter with a heart for the disabled community. As the mother of an adult with autism, Ann was one of the head coordinators of the recent Guardians and Gatekeepers Family Advocacy Conference produced by Kids Need Both, Inc. by Lakeland, Florida. Ann has also written the book, Holding It All Together, a data-driven guide to parental alienation. Now, I'm sorry for any of those slowdowns with the bio. There's a lot to read there, but Ann, you're doing amazing work. Thank you so much for being with us on Journeys in Faith.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we have so much to talk about. I thought we could start out with your faith journey because you are a person of faith. You're Catholic. You're living out your faith, and you are also in ministry. Tell us a little bit about your early life and then we'll go right into, how you got involved in what you're doing now.
Sure. So I am a cradle Catholic. I'm the youngest of 5 children, and my parents were happily married for over 50 years. My dad died 15 years ago. It was 1 month before my youngest child was born. But they had a very, very good marriage. And I was blessed to go to Catholic grade school and Catholic high school. And between that and how my parents lived their lives, I learned the Catholic faith in a very real and tangible way. And the sacrifices that my mother made in my father's illness, because he died from complications of Parkinson's, it was a true testimony to how a Catholic marriage should be. So like I said, I went to a Catholic grade school and high school, and I was exposed to some organizations that were a little bit intense and a little bit rigid in their faith. And it did shape my worldview and my faith, not so much for the good, but as it turns out, I went to college and I graduated. And some of those extremities that I saw, they had to get burned out. It's almost like I had to experience that negative side in order to really grow and for God to walk into my life in a very powerful way. And after college, I met my husband. We got married. We had 4 children. And God was very, very present in our lives. But unfortunately, we did not have the conditions for a healthy Catholic marriage. And that marriage ended. And we had the grace of an annulment. And that annulment was a very healing time. And by doing an anatomy of what went into the relationship and what was healthy and what was unhealthy, I really got to grow a lot. And for anybody who's considering an annulment process, it can be daunting, but it is very healing. So what I learned throughout that annulment and through a lot of prayer and a lot of reading, we went through a very high conflict divorce, unfortunately. And there were a loss of a lot of relationships. And I am not alone in being an alienated parent. When there is a high conflict divorce, it can be very, very common. And there's a lot of stigma and a lot of pain that goes through that, because I was a full-time mother, and that was my vocation, and that was my calling until the marriage ended. And yet, I see very, very clearly with the passage of time and after a lot of prayer how God used that very painful period of time to work through that pain. And His grace was always there and was always available. Even though I might have made some choices that weren't always the best, He was always present for me. And that whole experience was so horrible and so painful when you have multiple court hearings and you're dealing with lawyers and the legal system, which is not family friendly. It can be very, very difficult. And most alienated parents do have PTSD as a result. And yet, God was still present. And I had family and friends who still showed up for me and my children. And there's one incident that I want to share, that it was such a clear sign of God's providence. This was in Ohio, and it was very, very cold, and I had just moved to a new home. And there were 2 members of the parish where I attended, and they showed up at my door with 6 wool blankets for me and my children. I have 4 children. And they had hot meals for the next 3 days for us. And I just cried. I just fell apart because I needed that. And that was like God showing up on that cold, cold winter day. And I tell that story only to share that with somebody who might be listening to this. If they're going through a really, really rough, difficult time, especially a high conflict divorce, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Your church community can support you. And at any rate, so my faith was really shaped and sharpened and honed by some very, very difficult experiences. And yet, I'll tell you what, Anne, the one thing I've found in the other alienated parents that I've met, I would say at least 95% of them have said that their faith has been their sanity throughout the whole experience. And that is something that I wanted to share as part of my faith journey. As I said, I went through the annulment process. I have remarried, and my husband and I are just, we're very, very happy, and we have seen how we are each other's paths to heaven. And even though we're both broken and we're both imperfect, we're able to use prayer as our guidepost. You know, what does God want to do in this situation? And that has been a real blessing for me on my faith journey.
Wow, that is just so beautiful. Thank you for sharing with us. Now, you were also a guest on the Sowing Hope podcast with Bill Snyder and I. And so I just encourage people that there's some good information over on that podcast too. And you've shared so much about your faith journey. I also thank you because I work for a nonprofit that actually does a little bit of work for those who are affected by divorce and separation. So you're doing really wonderful work to minister to people who are not only affected by divorce, but, you know, as you said, alienated parents, which is a special category that not everybody has gone through, but you do understand that so well. I thought you could share with us, if you would, you know, you're involved in ministry now. Tell us about that, and what do you love most about it?
I am involved with the Parental Alienation Support Group here in Jacksonville, and they are across the country. And like I said, most of the alienated parents that I've met through the local support group, as well as the ones online, their commonality with more than half of them has been their faith. So that's been a wonderful common thing that we can discuss during the support group meetings is how is our faith helping us on the journey. But at any rate, I'm a big believer in support groups, because when you have another person that you can talk to about the struggles and the joys that you're going through, it really makes a difference. And to be able to bounce ideas off of each other and just to have that friendship is so powerful. So I'm a big believer in support groups. The other thing that I have been involved with is a Parental Alienation Retreat. April 25th every year is International Parental Alienation Awareness Day. And we had a retreat this past April at the Resolution Center here in Jacksonville. And we had 6 presenters speak on the power of faith during the journey of parental alienation. And I helped put that on. So that was a very exciting project. We reached over 50 parents virtually, and then there were 2 parents who came to the in-person portion of it. And we're planning it again. I've also been working with Dr. Mark Roseman. I've written several articles for his magazine, Contemporary Family Magazine, and I am co-authoring a book with another alienated parent, an alienated father, on what our Catholic faith has to teach us about parental alienation. And that's another project that I'm working on too.
Beautiful. You know, you've shared so much, and we do have a whole lot more to talk about, but we do have to take a short commercial break. So stay with us and continue to learn about Anne O'Keefe Rodgers. We'll be right back here on Journeys in Faith. Welcome back to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network. My name's Ann DeSantis. And as I said on the first half of the show that we had an amazing guest. We have her back again, Ann O'Keefe Rodgers, CFLE BA. And she does a lot of work with alienated parents, people who have been divorced or separated and are alienated from their children, their families. So Ann, for the people who didn't maybe get to watch the first half, can you just tell us who are alienated parents? Because I know you do a lot of work with them.
Sure. So alienated parents are parents who have lost their relationship with their child. It's typically after a high conflict divorce. And many times it's because one or both spouses have a high conflict personality, and there may be a personality disorder involved, but it's a very traumatic experience because prior to the divorce, the parent and child relationship was strong and loving. So not only does it do damage to the parent, but obviously the child. And it's typically done when there's like brainwashing, basically, when one parent plants ideas in the child's mind that are not based in reality. And it's very, very difficult, especially around the holidays. Like this time of year right now is very hard for alienated parents. So it's important for alienated parents, number one, to reach out for help and support. And number two, to make sure that they're leading lives of credibility, lives of strength. And even though it is exceedingly difficult to not have that relationship in their life, but to do everything they can to stay strong.
And I know that for you personally, because you've experienced this, you have learned so much, not only about yourself, and also the way that God has provided for you, because you were annulled and you got remarried and you're with your husband now, and things are going well. But I know that you are taking that pain from the past and you are being able to help so many other alienated parents and people who are going through a lot of pain. So I just want to personally thank you. Thank you from myself and also from Fiat Ministry Network, who's airing this show, and Patchwork Heart Ministry with Bill Snyder, and our producer here, Ken Kohosky. We're just so grateful to you to be able to share what you're sharing. Now, here we are in 2022. You just said we finished the holiday season, but you have some good things that are happening in 2022. I wondered if you could just share what might be to come for you and for the programs and the things that you're offering for this coming year.
Certainly. So we are planning the April 2022 retreat for alienated parents. It will be here in Jacksonville at the Resolution Center, and there will be both an in-person component as well as virtual. We're also planning Mark David Roseman has support groups throughout the year, and it's a 6-week series, and that's virtual. And we cover the whole country with time zones. We try to make it at a time that's convenient. And that is an opportunity for parents to come together virtually to learn best practices in resilience on the alienation journey. And I'm doing some writing projects for Dr. Mark Roseman with his magazine, Contemporary Family Magazine. And his magazine is obviously about contemporary families, but it's kind of a mix of articles about parents, professionals, and all the work that's being done in family science. What makes for a healthy family, and what are the components of an unhealthy family, and what can we do to support good families, healthy families? And it's a great resource that is produced quarterly, and there's lots of great content on there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think it is just such a needed ministry. I mean, I know even with the work that I do with the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation, parents who, their relationship with their children isn't always perfect after a divorce. And like you said, I mean, sometimes that alienation does happen for many different factors. Could you tell us some more resources? I know you're in Jacksonville, Florida. Any other resources that you think might be helpful for those alienated parents, whether they be books or other support groups and things like that in their area?
Sure. There are two resources that I would recommend. One is faith-based, Catholic faith-based. Dr. Greg Popchak just wrote a book, How to Have Meaningful but Sometimes Difficult Conversations with Your Adult Children. It is an excellent book, whether you are alienated from your children or not. And it's hard to summarize a book in, a couple sentences, but basically Dr. Greg Popchak is talking about when there are difficulties in a relationship with the adult child, it's incumbent upon the parent to pray first and ask God, what do I need to do? What do I need to change so that I can approach my child about this subject? And to bring it to prayer first. And it's a very, very good book that I highly recommend. So that's Dr. Greg Popchak's and his book. Another great resource is Dr. Rick Marks. He's actually a psychologist here in Jacksonville, Florida, but he has a program called Relate Well. He is a formerly alienated adult child, and he has a wealth of resources on how to have healthy relationships. But he also has a lot of YouTube videos that talk about his experience as an alienated child. And he did reconcile with his mother. He was alienated from his mother for a good more than half of his childhood. And when he became an adult, he did reunite with his mother. So those are some really inspiring resources for targeted parents to become familiar with, because it can be hard to be hopeful. You want to be realistic, but every parent wants to be able to have a good and healthy relationship with their child. It's important to make sure that our thought world is filled with good things in the same way that we care about the food that we put into our body, that it's healthy. We want to make sure that the materials, the things we look at on social media, the books we read, the websites, things like that, that those are healthy, especially for alienated parents, because it can be very discouraging.
I just think what you're doing is so good and so needed. And again, I know I keep thanking you, but I really do appreciate what you're doing. As we're coming, in a little while, not right away, to a close, I thought you could just share with us, whether it be a story or what it's like for you, because I know you love what you do, and I know that you're making an impact. So what do you like most about what you do and how you help people?
I really like helping people that alienated parents, because the ones who reach out to me are typically, they're brand new. They just recently learned about what parental alienation is. And that's how I was 10 years ago. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that there were resources or anything. And it's very, very rewarding just to be able to tell somebody you are not alone. I know I mentioned this in the other podcast, and the devil works on us in isolation, and he is the father of lies. He wants to tell us you are the only one going through this because you are whatever, you are worthless. But we know that's a lie, and we know that we are daughters and sons of the Most High God. We are not worthless. And that's why alienated parents, again, I keep saying, reach out for support. That is what is so rewarding. I had a call from an alienated father on the other side of Florida, and he was beside himself because he had young children, and he knew that he wasn't going to have any time at all with them at Christmas. And I just did everything I could to encourage him and to identify the faith of his childhood, and to try to remember what you do now You want to be able to look back 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now, that what you're doing now is healthy and good. Because it would be very, very easy to go off in either into drugs or alcohol or promiscuity. But you want to have a view to the long term, because we're not made for this world. And it's entirely possible that when your child becomes an adult, becomes a parent, things could change. And you want to make sure that you are the parent that is healthy for them to come back to, if and when they choose that. So I get a lot of satisfaction with helping parents look at that long-term vision, because it is so easy just to get stuck in the pit of despair.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So well said. Now, we are at the close of the show. I wondered if you had any closing thoughts, anything else that you wanted to share with our audience before the Journeys in Faith is over for the evening.
I want to, like I said, really encourage alienated parents to reach out for help. They can contact me. We also have a Facebook group, Jacksonville Parental Alienation Journey Support Group, or Facebook group, I should say. And just remember that God is with you even in your pain, and you are not alone. Make sure to immerse yourself in the truth, because the world is going to tell you that you are worthless, that you deserve the treatment that you're getting, that you have no value. And we have to immerse ourselves in the truth, study scripture. If a parental alienation support group is not for you, find a good Bible study and surround yourself with good Christian community members.
Such great advice. You're really a joy to have on this show. And I really do hope that people who are watching this, I'm going to invite all of you, share this podcast, share it with other people, especially if you know anyone who's affected by divorce or separation, but especially parental alienation, because it is a special group of people that really do need that help and support. And Ann O'Keefe Rodgers is in the Jacksonville, Florida area, but with the internet and with just the way that we can all stay in touch now with online, it's easy to get in touch with her. So Ann, thank you so much for joining us on Journeys in Faith.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. God bless everyone. We'll see you next week here on Journeys in Faith on Fiat Ministry Network. God bless.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Ann DeSantis.